Welcome back to another episode of the RAG Report podcast, my daily bulletin show where I bring to you recruitment owners, advisors, suppliers, content creators, and investors who are prepared to give up their time to talk about what's going on in the world of recruitment, how we all cope with COVID-19, how we're going to get better, stronger together in the future. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Hyung Lee. Hyung is a very well-known character, personality online. He's the founder and curator of a publication called Recruitment Brain Food, which has over 22,000 subscribers in both the agency and the in-house community. I see Hyung pretty much every day online, and I'm keen to find out what he's been up to and what he thinks is going on across the world. Before I do, I want to mention a little word from our sponsors, Rise Recruitment Ventures. Rise are a small but growing investment business who are focusing on exclusively helping founders of startups and early stage recruitment agencies that want to scale and exit inside, less than 10 years. These guys have sold for 22 million in the past, a business called Liquid Personnel, which they scaled in 10 years. They bring not only a lot of money and capital, but they also bring a lot of experience to the table. And they want to help recruitment agencies grow through investing that time so that you can build world-class infrastructure to sell. This is not a back office solution. This is an investment partnership. If you're interested and think you might be the right type of person for them to invest in, then get in touch today via www.riserv.co.uk. Right, back to the show. Hyung, great to have you on, mate. Welcome to the RAG Report.
My pleasure to be on the show and having a chat with you, Sean. Looking forward to.
Just wondering who's got the better cap on, whether it's me or you. I don't know. You mentioned my hair that gets a lot of credit online, but I don't think I've had my hair out for about a month. Are you in a similar boat right now?
I'm absolutely in a similar boat, mate. I mean, my situation now is I thought I'd get away with it, but then I saw myself in the mirror and I had a few comments from people who say, "Hyung, listen, mate, something's got to happen." And I was thinking, right, do I take the shaver to it and take that risk, or do I just wear a cap? And I thought, right, I better fish this out and do the easiest things. So yeah, cap wearing might be the thing for going forward for me now.
Yeah, I do that. I have a shower, do it all, and then it just looks so fucking big. Like, it's the same sort of style as it was, but it's just massive. And I'm like, some days it looks all right. Most days it needs a hat as well, just to keep it.
You can't manage it, mate. I mean, this is where you start getting into spending like way too much time doing this, and you realize, what is the point? I got better things to do than trying to style my hair, so screw that.
Interestingly as well, we're going well off topic before we even start talking about recruitment, but someone asked me last week, like, you always wear gym kit right now, Sean. They were like, you're sponsored by Under Armour or whatever. I've got a nightcap on today. I was like, do you know what? It's what you said, decision fatigue. Like, I feel like right now I'm trying to do that many things in a day. The last thing I need to think about is, have I dressed up for the Zoom calls? Like, as long as I'm presentable, and if I'm in gym kit, you can't smell me from the camera. So,
Mate, I'll tell you something. This is going to change how we work, though, because we probably spend way too much time on things like appearance. A lot of it is about everyone does it, so everyone has to do it. A lot of the dressing up stuff was all that, but I don't see we're going to go straight back to that, irrespective of what happens going forward. We're going to realize, you know what, let's do substance more than style, and that's how I think we're going to do it. It's going to hopefully be a better world. We'll spend less on like suits and stuff like that. It'll be like, okay, this is who I am, this is what I do, and so what if I'm wearing a t-shirt?
Exactly, yeah. Well, Hyung, I mean, I've kept an eye on you. We've met a few times, but for people that don't know you, can you give us an overview as to who you are and what you're up to?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Hyung Lee. I basically these days write a newsletter called Recruiting Brain Food, which everyone's welcome to subscribe to. You can do that, by the way, on recruitingbrainfood.com. It is quite simply a weekly newsletter where I'm just curating content from the internet that I think is interesting or relevant to the recruitment community. And it started off as a side project a couple of years ago. It's since just mushroomed into this business. And now it's like a podcast, a newsletter, an online community. I've built a chatbot recently. There's like a kind of a Craigslist type of service I've just delivered as well. So it's morphed into multiple things. But the main idea is, look, lots of good content out there for recruitment folks. It's just too much crap as well. And how can I do a task of kind of raising the signal to noise for the recruiters by clearing out the crap and just delivering the quality? So that's what Recruiting Brain Food is all about.
Love it. Love it. So what I want to ask you is the same as everyone else. What the hell is your life like right now? If you can paint a picture, like where do you live, what you're doing, how is your life in, what are we now, the mid to the end of May?
Yeah, every day is like Sunday, Sean. I mean, I had this conversation with a friend of mine yesterday, actually, and we were just talking, shooting the breeze about what she was doing, what I was doing. And neither of us, we found ourselves unable to complain about the situation, because obviously there's so many more people that are suffering far worse tribulations than us. This friend of mine, by the way, happens to live on Lake Geneva. And she was telling me, yeah, she's going to go on a yachting cruise that afternoon with nothing else better to do with the time. I'm thinking, yeah, she's fine. Don't worry about her. And I'm kind of feel the same. I work from home in any case. It wasn't a big shift. I mean, obviously business has been crushed. I mean, no sort of two ways about that. Been very, very tough. But as a business, I've always ran it's super skinny, and there wasn't a huge overhead. It wasn't office to pay for, wasn't staff to fire, anything like that. So at the end of the day, it wasn't sort of that difficult transition. It's simply a case of no cash flow. I was fortunate enough to be well supported by sponsors and what have you on Recruiting Brain Food. Ultimately meant that I had some plenty of runway, so I can't complain, even though I recognize that business could certainly be better for me, but for everyone else as well, really on the planet. We're going into recession globally, so it's tough times for everyone.
When you were producing the content before the kind of announcements before it really hit us hard in the kind of second week of March, mm-hmm. How much awareness did you have of what was going on around the world, and how did you really think it was going to be like this?
And that's purely because I've got relatives in the Far East. My family from Hong Kong. I think I got SARS in 2003. So this type of thing I was very familiar with, and I was just realizing that when China locked down Wuhan in end of January, they locked down like tens of millions of people. I just thought, this is serious business. If it does creep over here, and in such a way where people can spread it very easily, there's no stopping it. And I just thought, the way what did it for me was Cheltenham Festival, mate. To be honest, I was just thinking, what are you doing having 250,000 people together in close proximity when you've got this thing knocking on your doorstep?
Like the day that they were already announcing what was going on around the world, like Italy.
Dude, Italy was already having these horrific numbers by then. Spain was starting to creep up, and then we're having this massive festival. I was just thinking, look, I don't think UK's got a handle on this. I mean, I was kind of very defensive really from February onwards, to be fair. Just from what I was hearing and what I knew. Also, I had relatives that were kind of immunocompromised. My mum actually has got an immune problem, and so she's highly sensitive. And I was like, we don't need her getting this. So then I became very defensive because she was staying with me at the time. So I knew really by end of sort of, I would say early Feb, that this is going to be probably a very big thing. Did I know it was going to be as big as this? No, of course not. No.
What did you hear coming out of the recruitment market? Can you remember the first sort of murmur you heard in the recruitment space about it, and who was reacting to what was going on?
I don't think recruitment was any quicker or slower than anybody else, to be honest with you. I think the UK really only clocked into this when sort of the lockdown announcements were being rolled out, and then suddenly, we can't go anywhere, and the implications of not being able to go anywhere start to hit home.
I would say I recorded a podcast in February with Nick Eves, the founder of Stanton House. They've got a Hong Kong presence, and he was like, it's really affected my Hong Kong business. People are not wanting to go to interviews. It's really affecting my team. They don't want to go to work, blah, blah. And that was like early mid-Feb. So I'd just been in Dubai, and when I was in Dubai, late Jan was when it was all kicking off in China and all the footballers were leaving. I've mentioned it loads of times, but I literally saw Marouane Fellaini, who was an ex-United player, on my Sky Sports News app saying leaving China due to like the pandemic. Got out of the cab as I was looking, and he stood in my hotel in Dubai. He later got coronavirus as well. But for me, it was like that episode with Nick at the time. I don't know. I listened, but I still thought it was just because SARS. I remember I went traveling in 2010. I think there was a second outbreak of SARS in 2010, and it was people had the masks on in the airports in Thailand, in Vietnam, and but because it never got around the world, I was like, it's just going to be another one of them. I didn't see it. I honestly didn't think it was going to be. If you listen back to my episodes as well, I was so naive the way I was talking.
Dude, who is not naive, man? I mean, no one can be wise after the fact. I think where you and I may be a little bit different is that we did have these contacts in the Far East, and that gives you a little bit of color. But even then, it's hard to. I mean, I was in shock still. So even me knowing all of this and, having relatives over there and so on, I was still like, when we were in lockdown, in the third week, I was still like in a daze. It took me a long time to really think what's actually gone on here. So yeah, I think it's one of these things that you can theorize, but you've got to experience it. And now I think we've all experienced it. We've got a little bit of an understanding as to what these types of diseases do.
100%. So one thing I've done is I've covered pretty heavily the agency response, right? So the initial reaction, the kind of what I call reaction mode, where everyone started looking at cutting costs like left, right, and center. Then it was actually getting to grips with it, and proactive mode. I think furlough has been amazing because it's allowed so many recruitment agencies to keep costs low and still push forward. And had they not brought the furlough scheme out, I'd really worry about any sector, but I'm focused on recruitment agencies. I think it'd have been catastrophic. What was the in-house response like? How can you give us some indication of how that early days responded?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're not sheltered. Nobody in the in-house world is sheltered by it. It's slightly different in the sense that in-house had other responsibilities that they could repurpose themselves for. So a lot of them ended up doing the communication, almost segueing into the HR sort of elements where you've got to talk to the people that they were furloughing. They had to speak to the wider markets, into the marketing side. They had to do a lot of the employer branding stuff and make sure they were on top of the crisis communications and what have you. So there probably was a couple more weeks of work and effort, if you like, for the in-house folks. Whereas agencies could maybe react a bit quicker and say, look, all of our customers are simply not hiring anymore. We have to just stand down half the business. That didn't quite happen in the for the in-house crew. Although as soon as growth stops and companies stop hiring, in-house people also go on to furlough like everyone else. The growth functions, generally speaking, have all had this effect. So sales, marketing, recruitment theoretically could be described as associated with those two. You're going to get cut or furloughed as a result of the slowdown.
Yeah. Have you seen any interesting organizations that have done anything creative in terms of their employer brand, or tried to keep the lights on and not just close the door on talent? Because there will be a point where you need to start growing again.
Yeah, I mean, there's different positions you need to take. I mean, one of the most interesting things I read the other day, I featured it on the newsletter actually, which was the posture of not getting into this binary idea of, look, you either grow or cut. It's a very easy kind of black and white scenario, but actually it's not it's a very good time to start hiring the absolute elite talent that previously you'd be outcompeted for. That's not going crazy. These are like one-off people or whatever. There's a really good tip actually in that post where basically the advice was for recruiters to go to the hiring manager and say, or their line manager and say, listen, over the past couple of years, who are the top 3 people that you wanted to hire into your business but weren't able to do it for whatever reason? Can you give me their names and numbers? And then just use that opportunity to tap those people up. It could be that they're also under stress, or they're under situations where, they've been destabilized. Now might be the perfect time to have a chat with that person. So I think companies that have the runway or have a little bit of capacity might be able to be a bit clever about this, and to really recruit these types of elite talent, transformational talents, if you like, into the business that otherwise they wouldn't be able to do. So I still think you can do recruitment, but obviously the overall scheme of it is that we're going to do far less than we were before, and we need to think about our own job security and what we have to do to survive what looks like very tough couple of years ahead.
Well, yeah, 100%. What do you think the changes to the in-house market will look like as a result of this? Like, do you think there'll be as many businesses investing in internal teams, or would they maybe revert back to the flexible cost of an agency, that they don't have that fixed cost element? Because going into the thought of a second wave that could hit us again, if we get the economy moving, the thought of a second wave will be in the back of everyone's mind, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the recruitment market generally is going to fragment and diffuse. So what I mean by that is we've obviously let a lot of people go. A lot of people are also on furlough. A lot of people who aren't let go or on furlough are working from home. All of those three factors will encourage the further fragmentation of the agency marketplace, simply because suddenly you've got all of these recruiters working on their own homes, doing their business and doing their work, that it's going to cross their mind, say, hey, listen, why am I doing it for acme.com here, when in fact I could undercut them and just trade by myself? I'm literally, it will make it very real to people that they're able to actually do this. So I fully expect an explosion of one man, one person type agencies setting up, and then getting into the market, and then really, I wouldn't say muddying the waters is the right word, but it'll be very, very competitive as a result of these new businesses emerging.
We've already got such a, 81% of the agency market apparently is under 10 staff, right? So it's going to make that bottom level grow even bigger, which, again, I don't blame people for looking at that, especially if, you're going back to an organization where the owner's got a focus on going back to exactly how they were. If they're not prepared to evolve, you'll see I think they'll either move to an organization which will be more flexible and will continue with the remote, semi-remote option, or, like you say, starting up. A quick interruption of the episode to bring to you a message from our second sponsor, which is Odro. Odro, as most of you probably know, is the world's most powerful all-in-one video interview platform for recruiters. Used by thousands of recruiters worldwide, and with some of the industry's biggest names amongst its client base, Odro is a video interview platform. It was developed specifically to help agencies increase their revenues. The most innovative solution on the market, Odro's software helps recruiters to engage more talent, reduce time to hire, and most importantly, it helps you win business. You'll even get the ROI back from investing in Odro within just 45 days. It's designed to benefit everyone in the process. So from recruiters to clients to candidates, Odro's platform is improving the hiring process one interview at a time. We chose to partner with Odro because we felt like both brands, Hoxo and Odro, were in such a clear alignment in the way that we approach everything we do and how passionate we are about helping this industry grow. If you want to find out more about how Odro can help your agency transform its process and win more business, win exclusivity and drive revenue, then click the link on the podcast notes and every social post that goes out, and you will get a call back by one of the Odro guys. They are awesome, and I'm sure they'll be able to offer some amazing value to your business. Thanks for listening. Let's get back to the show. You'll see I think they'll either move to an organization which will be more flexible and will continue with the remote, semi-remote option, or, like you say, starting up. But do you think one more question is, do you think end clients will they want the fixed cost of a recruitment team at the size that they had?
Well, the second part of that question is that fragmentation is going to mean that end employers will be able to access different types of recruiter. So in other words, We don't want to run into the idea of that hiring someone in-house is always fixed cost and permanent. We're going to see a lot more interim one-man band type recruiters selling themselves in to say, hey, listen, I could do your in-house stuff for this amount. And so I think there will be sort of this competition for recruitment agencies, but it probably won't be building huge teams of TA. I agree with that. But it doesn't mean that they will immediately revert to going through the commission-only recruitment agent as a supplier.
So you might see recruitment in-house recruiters being more like freelance consultants.
Yep.
You might see agency independents offering retainer solutions that are more so. They might even merge a little bit.
Yeah, the boundaries will literally disappear. I mean, what's the difference between me setting up as a quote unquote agency and then occasionally offering to say, hey, I'm in-house, quote unquote? It's just a different way of billing the customer. And if I could say, hey, listen, I'd rather take a retainer rather than, pay per placement, then yeah, effectively I'm in-house, right? So I think we'll see a real explosion of these mini RPOs, if you want to call them that way, who really don't pay that much attention to whether they're agency or in-house. They're not going to have that in their mindset. All of us were agents at one point, so let's not forget that, including almost every in-house person. I've not met a single in-house person that wasn't an ex-agent. So everyone knows the game. But I think there's going to be a huge group of people that will exist in this middle space where, they'll trade typically on their own, maybe one or two people as partners or what have you. But they'll be probably low-cost competitors to your big agencies and your fixed permanent in-house teams, really.
Yeah, makes sense. What would you say is like any advice you've heard? Have you heard anything cool over the last couple of weeks where you think, that you might have shared it in one of your newsletters, but it'd be good to share with my audience is recruitment owners, predominantly the smaller, newer organizations. Not always, but I know there's a lot of people listening that have either just started or we're about to start.
Mm-hmm.
Any advice you've got? Anything you've heard? Tips that might be relevant?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's not really advice anyone's given me, but it's something I came across I thought was just really smart. I would say, if we accept that this is going to be a transformational moment, let's say, in terms of society and global economics and what have you, obviously it makes sense for us to pay attention as to what that future might look like going forward. And one of the smartest things to do, I think, is to track where investment is going, particularly which industry sectors seem to be growing, which seem to be contracting, and position yourself accordingly. There's a couple of really good slide decks where basically VCs have said, look, this is where we're parking our chips. And I'm thinking, right, if that's the case, you as a recruiter, you need to be stepping into this world. This is cybersecurity. This is health tech. This is biotech. This is anything to do with remote working, cloud services, stuff like that. Anywhere where you would see there being a requirement for in-person type of businesses, probably not a great idea, because you can imagine a lot of companies are going to try and automate their processes in order to keep trading. We've already seen automated restaurants in Asia, for instance, spike up as a result of this because they want to serve customers food. They still want to be in the restaurant business, but they're aware that the person coming into the restaurant is now thinking very defensively in terms of their healthcare. Like, is this food cooked by a human being that's coughed over it? Or is it being served by a person that hasn't washed his hands for 20 seconds or more with soapy water?
Like robots are cooking the food?
It's robots cooking the food and serving it.
Dude, where's that, man?
Twitter's amazing for this.
Yeah.
There's a lady called Naomi Wu, who's this Chinese, very good English, but she's a Chinese kind of hacker maker. So she makes things out of stuff. And she's got all kind. I mean, you just need to look at her to recognize that she's a controversial figure, be it in China or anywhere else, right? She looks a certain way, she behaves a certain way, etc., etc. But get beyond that and just track what she does. And what she does is really just tell stories about how different societies and different businesses are evolving to cope with this. And you can see what's happening is that we're dehumanizing a great deal of the things that required a human being before. And mainly because those businesses want to persist, but they don't want to have to rely on a human being to do it. Let's not forget, it's not just about, hey, we want to employ humans, that's great, and everyone wants to do that. But your business might be dependent on providing a guarantee that it's sanitized. And it's very difficult to do that. Again, I've seen some pictures of, forget what it was, might have been in one of the European countries that are starting to go out of lockdown. Restaurant workers, wearing masks, but then taking the masks off as they're cooking the food. And I'm thinking, that's not how it's done, right? I mean, ultimately, maybe these things are not that important in terms of spreading the virus. We don't really know yet. But at the same time, as a restaurant, as a client of a restaurant, you might want to know how secure this is in terms of its sanitation. So, yeah, I think anything in person is not a great place to be a recruiter right now. Anything that helps automate those businesses, it is a good place to recruit. So you don't need to necessarily jump radically. If you're looking at, let's say you're a hospitality recruiter, fantastic. Maybe you need to switch to working for businesses that want to supply robots to restaurants. So there's an adjacent move you can make.
Pivot to something you still understand, that's an evolution of what you're already doing, right?
Correct. And recruiters are really good at this, so there's no excuse. Recruiters are really good at spotting the trends and jumping onto it. That's how we survive recessions anyway. It's how I survived it, back in 2000s, whatever, when the first .com, I was a .com recruiter, recruiting web developers for e-commerce businesses and so on. That popped. I just moved into telecoms for 3 years, no problem. That popped. I moved into public healthcare IT for 4 years. So I think recruiters are able to make these adjacent moves. And right now, of course, if you're starting a new business and you had a vision, it would be this. Have a think about where the overall trends are and where the direction of travel is going to be. And really put your chips where the VCs are putting their chips. Don't go just because you thought that this was a good idea to recruit in this area. Certain industries may never recover from this, and we need to be real with that.
True. What have you learned the most about yourself in lockdown?
I would say I've learned that I don't mind my own company. I knew this anyway, but it's been really helpful to kind of have that underlined. And I think that's different for different people. I know some people really do need to have a lot of human interaction, one-on-one, or they need to have that, in-person experience. I totally get that. I'm not that type of person. And therefore, it's kind of helped me think about how I need to position myself for this coming future. So the biggest thing I've learned is I think I can cope with it. And I think I can build positive things in this circumstance. And those things give me a huge amount of encouragement. No,
I agree. I think I don't know. If you took away the video technology that we're on, I think it'd be a completely different world. I know I would definitely then struggle massively if it was just, phone calls and not seeing anyone. But because it's video and it's so fucking frequent, it's Zoom fatigue is a real thing right now. It kind of masks, it gives you that hit you need. You see your family, you see your mates. And I've been in a funny one because my best mate is my business partner. I've got a bigger group, but me and him have been best mates since first day of uni, right? A long time ago. And didn't have the grey hair back then. It was just starting. But what that's meant is because I see him all day or most days of the week, when it comes to the weekend, we don't really spend any time together anymore. Yep. We just we talk, but he's got a missus in West London, I'm married in East London, so we don't see each other. And although I have a group of mates, we're all dotted everywhere, so we didn't spend that much time together. But now, Zoom in, we've had more Zoom conversations as a group and see more of each other than ever before. The biggest problem I've got now is there's not enough happening in the world to spark conversation. So every time I speak to them, there's nothing fucking new to talk about. And unless I talk about work, which is not interesting to someone who's not a recruiter or just doesn't care about Hoxo, you're like, what else have I got to talk about? Like,
Well, here's the thing though. Take the pressure off yourself. I mean, I do this with my family to a large degree, where I figured this out before COVID actually, because my parents live miles away. They live in Hong Kong generally, so. You know what parents are like. They're going to want to speak to you. They'll always want to speak to you more than you want to speak to them. It's the truth of it, right? But if you save those calls up for the once a week, once a month type of thing, you end up having to really write notes down before you pick up the phone, because you want to have loads to talk about. And then it becomes a really forced conversation where they want to keep you on the line and you don't. The trick is just call them every day. And I do that with my mom now. I'll call her every morning, no doubt, no stop. You know what, Sean? Those calls last less than 30 seconds now. She's watching YouTube. She doesn't want to. She don't want to talk to me. But the point is, she just wants to check in. Yeah. So if, you know what I mean. And I think that's the same with friends now. It's like, hey, listen, how you doing? It's all good. Don't worry about it. I'm busy. Yes, fine. Boom, off. But you've just checked in, and that's good enough. You don't need to have those long conversations necessarily.
I've not drank any beer since I think I'm on about day 50 now. I'm doing this 75-day challenge. So
75 no beer?
75. It's got 75 hard. I've mentioned it a few times. So it's got, basically, for 75 days, I've had no cheat meals, no alcohol. I've trained twice a day. I've drank a gallon of water. And I've read 10 pages of a self-improvement or business book every day. I'm on day 50 today.
That's rock, man.
Yeah, it feels great. It definitely feels good, and it builds some habits. But you are a bit boring when you're on a call where everyone's drinking. Because that was one of the funniest things. We had a Zoom drinks night before I started that, and it got Larry. Like, it's hilarious. But I was on one recently where I was the only one not drinking, and I was a bit boring. But I don't know if I can. I finish on the 13th of June, Saturday 13th. I finish. I'm going to run into London. I'm going to run to Trafalgar Square. It's about 12 miles from my house.
Yeah.
And I want my wife to follow in a car. Or just
cool. Yeah.
A load of beers in the back. That's the plan.
I love it, mate. So she got some sort of gimbal or something like that you can set up in the car, or?
God knows. She'll take the dog. She'll drive it, and then my two mates are going to run in from different parts of London. They've not done it, but we're going to meet there and then have a few beers and drive back. But for me, it's been really good because it's given me a focus that I've been talking about doing it for about a year since I listened to this podcast, and then. There's always been a reason. There's always been an event, getting married, someone's birthday, holiday, something going on. And then as soon as this hit, I thought there's two things. I can't afford a shit day right now. Like, I just can't afford to wake up and feel hungover. There's no way I can. And also, in the first week of lockdown, I'd had a few beers, a few nights, and I definitely felt myself a bit negative. So I was like, sort that out. And it just gave me a focus every day. And now I'm like, wow, it's been unbelievable.
Listen, Sean, I know you're talking to a bunch of recruiters listening to this show, but I've got obviously being in recruitment, you like a beer and a night out and stuff like this. But the truth be told, I'm kind of in the same way, man. It's like beers are great, but I don't like the next day. So maybe this is age as well, where I really don't want to feel horrible for the next day, because it does take at least a day now. And then I find myself super unproductive. Like, I can't motivate myself to do a single goddamn thing. And I'll end up watching Netflix or feeling sorry for myself, more or less. And it's like burning time. And I'm thinking, that's a waste.
No, I agree.
There's better things I got to do with this. So yeah, I've not drank for a long time as well. Probably for about a month. I had a beer at the end of the Brainfood Marathon about 5 weeks ago. So I had a beer then.
I think one or two, I will always want that in my life. But going back, getting hammered, nah, not that fussed. Someone said to me, would you prefer the coffee at 9 a.m. or like a whiskey at 1 in the morning? And I was like, coffee at 9 a.m. like all day. That's like, oh, well, that's what you need to focus on. You can either stay out till 1, but you ain't going to be up at 9 doing that, or you can have the coffee. So look, it's definitely taught me a lot about myself, I think. And now I'm like, well, however long this lasts, I can't control that. The only thing I can control is what I do all day and how I think, how I focus myself. That's it. That's literally all I can control. And I think the one thing about this podcast, there's been a lot of people on, and that seems to be a common theme with people that are doing well or prepared to share insights. They're just looking after themselves. Like, they're just concentrating on what. And if you look after yourself first, you'll then have a better impact on those around you, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think we've all got a responsibility for that. Again, it's weird because sometimes if you go into the office and you're going business as normal, if you like, you've got someone else giving you that structure. You know what I mean? Someone else is organizing your life effectively.
Yeah.
But now it's like work from home, or you're on furlough, or you're redundant, or whatever. You've got all this time on your hands, and it's like, okay, I've got to do what I've got to do. And the first thing to do is to get yourself self-organized, self-disciplined, all of those skills that probably we neglected because we outsourced it to our employer.
Yeah.
We've had to build that out. So I think, one of the positives that comes from this is maybe we're going to get a lot more self-reliance and self-organized people coming back to the world of work, let's say, after, as we move into this new future of ours.
I hope so. I think so. Well, so to wrap it up, Hung, I've loved it. What can people do? So you mentioned the subscribers, so they can get subscribed. Have you got any other events, anything happening online people can watch or tune into soon?
I'm always doing a Friday afternoon Brain Food Live. This is a video live stream. So I do that on LinkedIn. I do it on Facebook. It's multicast everywhere. So feel free to watch that if you want to talk. It's typically based in some sort of recruitment content, be it sourcing, employer branding, D&I, whatever it is. We're going to talk about it. So that happens every Friday. So your viewers are welcome to jump on that if they're up for it.
Wicked. All right. Well, I'll tag you in this post, and hopefully, people will reach. If anyone wants to reach out and ask any questions, you're open for that as well.
Yeah, definitely. Get hold of me on Twitter. I think I'm maxed out on LinkedIn, but I think you can message me somehow on there. Get me on Facebook, wherever it is that you see Hyung Lee. I'm happy to have a chat with you.
Legend. All right. Appreciate that, guy. And look, guys, thanks so much for listening again. I know, this is tough times, but hopefully what you're hearing from people that I'm interviewing is that we will get through it, and we'll get through it with the right attitude and daily practice. We can't solve anything by looking at the bigger picture. We can only solve what's ahead of us on that day, and hopefully take something from this and just make every day count. If you are enjoying what you're listening to, please do. I don't ask you to pay for listening to this, but I do ask you to do one thing, which is share this podcast with someone who you think will benefit. So get it out on WhatsApp, text, email, whatever, LinkedIn, to people you know. Together, we're going to get through this pandemic a lot better. I'll be back again tomorrow with more insights. In the meantime, stay safe. I'll see you soon.